Hey folks, Andrew Franklin, Associate Professor in the Department of Psychology at Norfolk State University. Want to welcome all of you back for another fall semester at Norfolk State, and I'm excited that you're in my Clinical Methods course. This is Site 430, and this course will very much prepare you to at least have a foundational knowledge and some burgeoning skills as it relates to helping people in the professional context. I know many of you all are helping individuals in your everyday lives, whether you're offering advice or you're providing a listening ear. So the theory that we're going to talk about in this course is going to really help you be grounded in terms of the different approaches that you can use in a therapy setting with folks. I don't want to be before you too long, and this time around I really don't want to PowerPoint you to death. I just want to talk to you kind of eyeball to eyeball by me looking at the camera. I have my notes kind of pulled up in the background and kind of serve as an anchoring point, so if you see me look off camera and then come back, that's what I'm doing, just so that I can kind of keep track of how I'm utilizing this time. But otherwise, I want to just pull out a few salient things from chapter 1, and then when I'm back in class in the subsequent week, following the first week of the semester, we can delve into a little bit more detail. So the introduction to helping. So this is a helping skills model put forth by Clara Hill, who's a clinical psychologist and a researcher for that matter. And she set up a model that helps professionals be able to think about what needs to happen in the therapy space. And that model consists of 3 components. It's exploration, it's insight, and then it's action. In the exploration stage, you are simply exploring. You're trying to figure out what's going on with the client. You can't really help somebody figure out where to go unless you've done an adequate analysis of where they've been and the different contextual factors and nuances of their dynamic and their story. That helps you to be more in tune with them. It helps you to establish rapport with them, and then ultimately it sets you up to be able to provide them with some insight and some guidance. So you start off with exploration, and then you move to insight. Think of insight as kind of internally seeing, right? Having a new perspective or a take on different challenges, problems, issues, vicissitudes, changes, whatever the case may be, whatever may be going on in a person's life. Like insight kind of helps to shine a light on those things and reorient a person's perspective. And then finally, the action stage deals with taking a lot of those insights and making some meaningful change. And we'll talk about specifics as it relates to if people necessarily need to move from exploration, insight, or action, or if it looks different depending on the context. Kind of spoiler alert, it does. All right. For now, what I want you to do is sit back and think about just the different ways in which people show up in the therapy space. So there's many ways that individuals may show up to a therapy encounter. Some individuals may show up with mild to moderate issues as it relates to depression or anxiety or ADHD or OCD, or some individuals may show up with severe psychological difficulties and challenges, personality disorders, maybe even comorbid diagnoses, which is when you have two or more diagnoses at once that are impacting your everyday functioning. There are some individuals that might be suicidal. Some may be homicidal, and the practitioner is tasked with trying to get an understanding of the person that is in front of them and provide them with culturally sensitive, ethical care that allows them to move forward in their lives. I want you to think about what happens in therapy as being akin to one person helping another efficiently pack their suitcase or pack their luggage. Okay, I want you to imagine in your mind's eye right now luggage that is overflowing with garments spilling out of it, undergarments spilling out of it, shoes spilling out of it, right? And imagine that there's another person alongside the person whose luggage is spilling out, helping that person to be able to put shirts and trousers and dresses and blouses in its proper place, and maybe even make decisions about what doesn't need to be in the luggage anymore. So many of you all have already kind of caught this analogy and you understand it. The socks and the shoes and the trousers and the shirts, all of that represent thought thought patterns and experiences and emotions and different types of maybe traumas that an individual has dealt with, and the person that's assisting the one with the luggage is the clinician, right? Helping the person to make decisions about what is helping them, what is working for them, what is not working for them, what is useful to reorganize or reframe in their mind, what is necessary to process. Sometimes you got to pull garments out, you got to roll out the shirt completely to kind of get an idea of what you're working with, right? It gives you an idea about fit, about size, about coloration, all of that. Style gives you all that information. Sometimes processing things is necessary in therapy. So I think that thinking about a suitcase being organized properly is a way to think about therapy, right? People come in vulnerable with their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, their experiences spilling out, and if it's not spilling out, hopefully it will with a careful, thoughtful clinician, right? And that clinician needs to be able to hold safe space for those thoughts and those feelings, and help an individual figure out how to process those things and meaningfully integrate it into their lives, that in a way that causes them to thrive and in a way that causes them to be successful. So this very nicely brings us to the point in this presentation where I define what helping is. As I mentioned before, I have my notes pulled up on my larger computer behind my laptop, so I'm going to look over to that briefly and just read the definition straight out for you. Helping is one person collaboratively assisting another in exploring feelings, gaining insight, and making changes. So we're looking at helping in this kind of broad sense because we want to encapsulate the work that family members do and friends do and clergy members do and mental health professionals do as well. To the latter population that I identified, mental health professionals are trained individuals that provide help and assistance, and this is mostly what that model that we'll be talking about in this class applies to: trained individuals. That's why you're in this class, so that you can get some training, some theory behind the helping and the assisting that you will one day do when you're working with clients. When I talk about mental health professionals, it's worth mentioning that there are a variety of folks out there, from licensed clinical social workers to licensed professional counselors to licensed clinical psychologists. There's many pathways you can take in order to be a mental health professional, okay? I do want to emphasize as well that the definition that I laid out for you all involves collaboration, usually as it relates to our physical bodies and different maladies, different issues that we encounter in our bodies, be them hormonal, be them related to our skin, be it related to our organs, be it related to bones. When we usually go see a physician, they are the expert in the field. They provide a fix, right? You go to the physician because you sprained your ankle, and they give you some guidance in regard to how you can treat it. You break a bone, they reset, they put it in a cast, they give you some pain medication, they send you on your way. And I'm simplifying things just for the sake of the conversation. So that's typically what happens in our doctor-patient relationships as it relates to our physical body. But as it relates to our psyches and the times in our lives when we deal with different types of changes and challenges, and we need assistance with triumphing over certain obstacles and challenges. The practitioners that we see are tasked with collaborating with the client, which is one of the reasons why the person receiving the assistance is typically called a client and not necessarily a patient, because there's a collaboration that typically happens across a clinician and a client, right? After all, the client is the expert on them. They've been spending umpteen years in their body, right? So they have perspective, they have thoughts about their different aches and their pains. They have strategies that they've tried to overcome their obstacles and challenges, and all of that is going to be relevant when that clinician sits down and tries to get an understanding, because it's not like the clinician is sitting back with all of this special esoteric knowledge and the client is just sitting there waiting to be a passive recipient. No, the client is supposed to be actively engaged in the treatment. And again, that's why we kind of have a clinician-client distinction versus sometimes what you see in medical circles where you kind of have the doctor, who's the sage, and then you have the patient who's just kind of like, I know what ChatGPT told me. Let me see what else I want to say here. There is a distinction between counseling and psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is typically used for more serious psychological issues, but counseling is typically employed for individuals dealing with life difficulties and challenges and transitions and adjusting, right? Examples of that could be, I'm transitioning to college, I'm dealing with separation anxiety because I'm away from Kentucky and now I'm at Norfolk State University, right? A counselor could help an individual be able to navigate those. Now, this isn't to stereotype all counselors and say that they're not capable of addressing serious psychological difficulty, but I'm just saying in a general sense, when you think about psychotherapy, think about it within the context of individuals who are trained to deal with some more severe psychological difficulties, and oftentimes what you see with counselors is that there is a subpopulation that primarily focus on mild to moderate issues. Other point I wanted to bring about as it relates to helping is that helping differs from everyday conversations with your friends, right? Usually when you're helping your friend in a conversation, it's 50-50, right? You praise them, they laud you, there's a fellow camaraderie, everybody is investing in the relationship in a way that's kind of similar, right? You're striving to be equitable, keep it on commensurate, on par with what you both need. In a helping context, it doesn't look like 50-50, but in a helping context, it looks more like 80-20, where the client is coming in and they need assistance, right? And the therapist is primarily there to serve them, not to be served, right? So I think there is that important distinction that is necessary to bring up, because I want you all to be able to differentiate the helping that happens in professional spaces from the helping that some of you all may be doing in your everyday lives. I said that I made it sound like there was only one point I wanted to make. The other thing I wanted to mention too, as it relates to helping and helping skills, is that when we talk about skills in this course, we're primarily talking about verbal skills. And don't let anyone mislead you in thinking that verbal skills are soft skills or they're passive skills, or they shouldn't be taken serious like the skills that are necessary to run a research lab in the sciences, in the natural sciences elsewhere. Soft skills are very much hard skills, and that they can be difficult to master, and they are absolutely critical to employ and know how to adeptly use when you're working with hurting people. So we're talking about helping skills, verbal skills that may come naturally to some of you, but for most people out there, there is a bit of a learning curve as you figure out on a micro level what you're doing when you're helping verbally, and then trying to balloon out from that and just operate from a more knowledgeable, intuitive place. That stuff takes time. All right, so I want to kind of end this recording by talking about the efficacy of psychotherapy and talking about some of the conditions that are necessary in order to help a client overcome difficulties and challenges. So first and foremost, the research overwhelmingly says that psychotherapy is effective. Individuals that attend psychotherapy or counseling, and there's something else I want to say about the psychotherapy counseling distinction, so put a pin in that for me to return to after I finish this statement. Individuals that go to psychotherapy and counseling are much healthier than 79% of untreated individuals. That's from research that was peer-reviewed research that was published in 2015. Quick distinction again I want to make between psychotherapy and counseling is that counseling is more short-term. Think of counseling as being like short-term, which makes sense if you're working with individuals with mild to moderate issues. Think of psychotherapy as being more long-term. Okay, now back to talking about whether or not it's effective. So yes, psychotherapy is effective. Okay, now naturally, this may lead some individuals to ask the question of, well, which treatment approach is so effective, right? Because there's lots of different treatment modalities out there. There is cognitive behavioral therapy. There is dialectical behavior therapy. There is acceptance commitment therapy. There's family systems therapy. I mean, there's just so many different models out there. Which treatment is effective? You know, naturally in our Americanized culture, like we want to kind of boil it down to, all right, like pinpoint specifically, like what's going to help me to level up, what's going to help me to get the gains. And, you know, really and truly, folks, the research shows that all of the therapies are effective. Right? No one therapy is better than the other. And this is a very nuanced conversation to kind of get into because it involves processing literature such as a lot of content that has been discussed in the heart and soul of change for my clinicians out there. I'm sure in your graduate school years you had to read that textbook. Where there's a lot of discussion about the common factors that show up across these therapy models and how it's these factors that are really important as far as facilitating change. But we don't have time to get into the heart and soul of change. Instead, what I'm going to tell you all is that, yes, they're all effective. And what seems to be really important, I'm going to zero in on some common factors, is that that therapeutic relationship is really important, as well as actually buying into what the model is saying is the cause for the disorder or the illness and what the treatment approach should be. In the research literature, this is sometimes framed as the myth, or you all can think of it as like the theory as to why the person is dealing with the psychological challenge or difficulty that they've encountered. Okay, but therapy is effective. Okay, and it's thought that the common factors are the reason why they're effective. Let me list out some of these common factors. As I mentioned before, one that is really critical is the therapeutic relationship. A sense of trust, a sense of familiarity and knowledge and respect across the clinician and the client is really important, right? If you don't have that, then the helping will not even get off the ground. The person probably will not even return to the session, right? Installation of hope is another common factor. And emotional arousal is a common factor as well. Some of you all may be like, emotional arousal, like why is that a common factor? Why is that key in terms of like helping therapy to be effective? While head knowledge is important, right? Getting insight into one's thoughts and feelings and experiences is important. If the insight that is gained does not emotionally resonate with the individual and propels them forward to want to change, then there's a high likelihood that they'll just sit with the head knowledge and remain in a stagnant place, right? So emotional arousal is not necessarily a bad thing. As I speak to it now, it speaks to one of those common factors that speaks to the extent to which insight gained within the therapeutic relationship is really resonating with the person in such a way that makes them go, oh, I definitely want to make a change, right? Or, oh, I think that I do want to look at that differently. I think I do want to interact with my wife or hubs a little bit differently, or my kids a little bit differently, right? There's other common factors as well that are really critical for the success of therapy. So there are facilitative aspects of helping, such as the fact that clinicians help to provide support and relief. Reading from my notes, they provide insight and understanding self in a new way. They help an individual kind of deal with existential concerns. Existential concerns speaks to this idea of kind of purpose and meaning in life, right? These critical questions that we all ask ourselves as we're pulling the shirt off of the hanger in the closet, right? As we're in the shower contemplating what our day is going to look like. We ask ourselves questions like, what's the purpose of my life, and what am I looking to accomplish this year and 4 years and 5 years, and I'm one and these trillions and trillions of people online and in the world, like how's my life going to make a difference? Like we ask ourselves these questions, and therapists can help individuals be able to navigate answering those questions. So there's lots of facilitative aspects of helping, of which I'll get into more when we return to class. And then there's problematic aspects of helping as well, or there's problems that may come out of an individual with problems showing up to therapy. So some of you all might be like, wait a minute, what? Like they're showing up to resolve their problems, and now you're telling me that them receiving assistance could potentially cause them to have even more problems? There's problematic aspects as it relates to helping. Yes, there's problematic aspects. Okay, let me rattle off just a few for you, right? One problematic aspect of helping is the clinician and the client could work to bring about relief that indeed enables them to stay in a maladaptive situation or a relationship, right? So you get enough relief just for you to stay right where you are until you go through another crisis again, right? So that's a problematic aspect of helping. That's something that's something bad that could come out of something that is really good, something that's happening in the therapy space. Helping could cause individuals to have a dependency on you, right? So you've helped them navigate those challenges, and now they're like, oh God, I need to speak to you in order to get guidance or suggestions, or I need to hear your opinion about this before moving forward. Like all of that is problematic, especially when the end goal is for individuals to have enough insight and maybe cultivate enough skills so that they can be their own therapist in real time as they're out there dealing with different types of challenges and situations. Okay. Last problematic aspect of helping I'll get at, because you've been hanging with me this long. God bless you, even if you don't believe in God. Imposing personal societal values on clients. We have to be very, very careful of this. We all have our own luggage, our own suitcase. Look at me trying to make it full circle, right? And it's packed, at varying levels, right? In that personal luggage and suitcase, we have experiences and viewpoints, world views, views of ourselves, others, and the world. And the clinician is tasked with trying to be a U.S. diplomat of sorts and enter into the client's world and respect the client's world and culture without necessarily trying to change their culture unless they want it to change, right? Unfortunately, there are some clinicians out there that are like, my view is right and you need to do X, Y, and Z, and that is unethical, and it's not helpful and can lead to a lot of damage. Yeah. All right, folks, you've been patient. Thanks so much for allowing me to stare in your eyes. I hope you got something out of this. I just kind of wanted to give an overview of what I would typically cover in class in some of the first few days in talking about helping. In summary, we talked about helping in general, defining it. We talked about the different ways in which people show up in a therapy space. We talked about how effective psychotherapy is. We distinguish psychotherapy from counseling. We talked about facilitative aspects of helping as well as problematic aspects of helping. And there's so much more we can talk about if you come to class, all right? And if you don't have any classes with Franklin, you should consider coming to Norfolk State University. Wonderful place to be. I would love to have you in class with me. Take care.